Hey, what's up? My name is Johannes. Welcome to my channel. In a few weeks, I'm going to turn 29, so I'm very close to the end of my 20s. And looking back over the last 9 years, I can tell that the 20s are really a time with very unique challenges. It's a time where you are finding yourself, you try to figure out things, you try a lot of different things, and you figure out what are your goals, what are your values. And throughout these years, I always read a lot, and these books really were my guides throughout this time, and they really helped me. So today I'm going to share some of the books that I found the most helpful, and hopefully they can help you as well. Before I start, I want to acknowledge that these types of lists are always very subjective, so the books that I found helpful are not necessarily going to resonate with you. But I truly believe that anyone can benefit from these books, and that there are at least a few books in this list that are going to be helpful to you. So let's jump right in and start with the first book. The first book is Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's a book by two designers, and they basically apply the principles of design to your life. So you use these design principles such as building prototypes and brainstorming and all these different techniques, and use them to figure out what life best suits you and where you want to go in life. I found this book very helpful, especially if you are in a phase in your life where you try to figure out in which direction you want to go. The next book is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. The title of this book is 4,000 Weeks because that's how long we live on average, which really puts things into perspective, and that's really the whole point of this book. He constantly talks about how we have all these different goals and things that we want to do in life, but it really is impossible to do everything we want. So it's important to prioritize and to figure out what's most important to us and pursue these things, and also to be really present and to enjoy the time that we have. I think in our 20s, we usually don't think about mortality and these things a lot because we're still very young and we still have a lot of energy. But I really believe that we could benefit greatly from thinking about these things earlier. Next up is Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. This is a book about networking, about building connections. In the last years, I also read a lot of biographies, and something that I noticed is that all these very successful, very influential people in pretty much every field have one thing in common, that they are really great at connecting with people, that they have large networks, and this book can really help you with that. The next book is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. This is a book about creativity, it's about procrastination and resistance, and he just shows you a lot of tactics that you can use to overcome resistance and to do the work that you are meant to do. And I think we could probably all use some of that, so I highly recommend this book. This book is Deep Work by Cal Newport. You can see it because I put it in a cover to hide the very aggressive neon color of this book in my bookshelf. In this book, Cal Newport talks about the necessity of being able to concentrate and to focus on something for extended periods of time if we want to do meaningful work, and he gives us a lot of different tools and techniques to achieve that. I used these techniques throughout college when I was writing theses, also when I'm producing YouTube videos. I always come back to the techniques from this book, and they are super helpful. The title of the next book is Mastery. It's by Robert Greene. And the title of this book already gives you a clue what this book is all about. It's about learning new skills and achieving mastery in any field that you choose to pursue. He gives a lot of examples and case studies from historical people and analyzes their lives and breaks down the different tactics that they use to achieve these high levels. So this is very relevant in our 20s. Atomic Habits by James Clear is probably the most comprehensive and most practical book on habits that I have read so far. I have read a few books on habits because I think that habits really make a huge difference in our lives. Whether it's in our professional lives or our health and relationships, our habits really determine the quality of our life. And the tools from this book are really super practical, very easy to apply, and they actually do work, so I highly recommend this one. One of the most influential books in my life has been this one. This is 4 Hour Work Weeks. Again, it's hidden in a cover. This is a book that talks about a lot of different things, from time management to entrepreneurship to travel, but it's really about reframing how you look at your life. We often tend to just follow the path that is laid out in front of us. We go to college, we try to get a good job, get married, and do all these things that our parents did and that everybody else is doing. And in this book, Tim Ferriss really shows us that we have different options and that there are so many different ways in which we can design our life to make it work for us. And it's really this paradigm shift in how you approach your life that makes this book so valuable. If you read this book and find it valuable, I also recommend to you to check out the podcast by Tim Ferriss, where he interviews a lot of people and also talks about his own views of life. So this is definitely something that you should check out. Next up, I picked out two novels, On the Road and The Dharma Bums, both by Jack Kerouac. Those are two of my favorite novels. They are both semi-autobiographical stories by Jack Kerouac. In On the Road, he talks about some travels he did throughout the USA when he was in his 20s, and he was hitchhiking all over the place and jumping on cargo trains. And the second book, Dharma Bums, it's from when he's a little bit older and he's into Buddhism and goes hiking in the mountains, meets all these different people. And I really like these books because they have this sense of adventure and trying out things and expanding your horizons that I think is so important in your 20s. Kerouac is an amazing writer, and especially if you are into travel, you are really going to love these books. For the next book, we stay on the topic of travel. It's Vegabonding by Wolf Potts, but this is not a novel. This is a non-fiction book about how to travel, basically, but it's not your average travel guide. It's really more about the spiritual aspects and about how you can get the most out of your travels. I think that everybody should travel in their 20s, and Vagabonding will definitely help you with planning that and also with getting the most out of it. The next one is a book that I've only read recently. It's Practical Ethics by Peter Singer. This is a book about morality, about ethics, about what is right and wrong. Peter Singer is a moral philosopher, and in this book he discusses a lot of different ethical dilemmas that we are facing as a society, from the way we treat animals to how we deal with poverty. He also discusses issues such as abortion and euthanasia. So he discusses a lot of very controversial topics. And what I like so much about it is the very structured and logical, rational way in which he approaches these issues. And even if you don't necessarily agree with his opinions on everything, I think just seeing how he approaches a problem and how he dissects it rationally is really helpful to learn how to think critically ourselves. So just for that, I would highly recommend giving this book a try. The next book is Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki. This is a book about minimalism. Minimalism has been very influential on me in my 20s. If you are new to minimalism, it's basically a philosophy where you really try to identify the things in your life that are most important to you and try to remove as much distractions as possible so that you can fully focus on the things that matter most to you. Goodbye Things is a wonderful introduction into minimalism. It talks a lot about the different aspects of it, how to approach it, some tools and techniques, also some of the more philosophical aspects of it. And if you want to understand minimalism and apply it to your life, this book is definitely going to help you. Another book on minimalism that really helped me was The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. This is also highly recommended. Staying on the topic of minimalism, we have my favorite book here. This is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. He was really the father, or maybe the grandfather, of minimalism. Back in the 19th century, he lived in a very small cabin in the woods where he tried to live very intentionally and figure out what really matters to him. And this book is his account of this time. There are a lot of philosophical discussions about what matters, also a lot of descriptions of nature. A lot of people love this book for the nature writing, others like it because his discussions of simple living. I like both of these aspects and I highly recommend this book to you. Another novel on this list is Siddhata by Hermann Hesse. Siddhata is loosely based on the life of the Buddha, and it follows the story of a young man who leaves his privileged life behind and goes out into the world to seek truth and spiritual enlightenment. This story really resonated with me because this is something that we all do in our 20s. We all leave behind our comfortable old lives and go out in the world, try to find our own ways. And this is a theme in most of Hermann Hesse's books. Siddhata is one example, but also Demian or Narziss und Goldmund. All these books follow a young man who goes out into the world to start his life's journey. And to me, they were invaluable guides on my own journey. And maybe they will do the same for you. Next, we have two books. First, The Power of Now, and then A New Earth, both by Eckhart Tolle. The Power of Now is all about living in the present moment and getting rid of our attachment to the past and the future. And in A New Earth, he builds on that and explores the ego and what it does to us, and also how we can let go of it. These are more spiritual books, but they don't follow any particular religious dogma. So whether you're Christian or Buddhist or atheist, anyone can read these books and anyone can benefit from them. I have gifted and recommended these two books a lot, and they also made a huge difference in my own life and how I approach my life. The next book explores a lot of the same ideas and concepts, but from a more scientific perspective. It's called Unwinding Anxiety by Dr. Judson Brewer. It's called Unwinding Anxiety, but it's really not only about anxiety, it's really a scientific guide to mindfulness. Dr. Brewer argues that anxiety is really a mental habit, and that by applying mindfulness we can break out of these patterns. And this not only applies to anxiety, this also applies to addiction and to all kinds of other negative mental patterns, such as anger issues or depression, or just the day-to-day background hum of negative thoughts and feelings that we all have. Moving from mental health to physical health, the last book I recommend today is How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. This is probably the best book on nutrition that I have read so far, and I have read quite a few books on nutrition. Most of them are very narrow and don't really give you the full picture. But How Not to Die is incredibly comprehensive. He explains how our diet, but also how exercise and other habits influence our health, and how some of our most common chronic illnesses like heart disease, cancer, or diabetes are connected with our diet and what we can do about it. To me, this book really is a must-read because we all have to eat, and what we eat truly makes a huge difference. So we all should spend some time early in our lives to learn about nutrition. And that was the last book that I'm going to share in today's video. This list is of course not comprehensive, so if you know any books that should be on this list, write them all in the comments down below and give your recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and I will see you if you want in my next video.